Most people have a moment like this in their lives. They live through it, but most of the time they do not think about it deeply. You make a decision. Not casually, but without hesitation, with a quiet certainty that comes from within. And in that moment, something changes. But what changes is not the world. It is you. Most people experience this feeling and simply carry on. They do not stop and ask what just happened. But in reality, something has already happened. Whether you notice it or not, the invisible turning point that sets the next chapter of your life in motion has already been created. The brain is not a passive receiver of experience. It does not simply record and document what happens to you. It constantly scans, filters, sets priorities, deciding moment by moment what deserves attention and what will be ignored. The primary thing that determines what you pay attention to is what you tell yourself is important. When you make a genuine decision, the kind that carries weight, the kind that leaves no back door open, you give your brain a new instruction. You tell your brain, as clearly as possible, what it should be looking for. And the brain does its work with remarkable precision and immediately begins to act accordingly. This is not simply a metaphor. The brain's filtration system genuinely works this way. Every second, your senses receive millions of signals, but only a very small fraction of them reach the level where you consciously notice them. The remaining information is silently filtered out before you even sense that it exists. What determines which information passes through this filter is largely what you have told yourself is important. That is to say, wherever you direct your attention, your brain begins to show you the world in that direction. Change what you have decided is important, and you change what you see. Change what you see, and you change what you reach for. Change what you reach for, and over time, you change what you build. It begins with a decision, but the decision sets off a chain reaction that most people never trace back to its source. They see the result and call it luck or timing or being in the right place. They do not see the instruction that started it all. You have felt this when you learn a new word and then begin to hear it everywhere. Or when you buy a new car and suddenly the streets seem full of that same car. Yet the word was being said before, and the cars were on the roads before. In fact, the car you bought was being used by almost everyone. You had simply built a filter in your brain to see them. Without that filter, everything passed outside of your attention. Once attention was directed, they suddenly became visible. This works in the same way at the greater levels of life too. Opportunities, connections, moments that could change your direction. All of them exist around us. They always have. But if the brain has not been given a direction to search for them, they pass by silently unnoticed, like everything else that does not fit the existing filter. This is why when someone says, "This will happen," when they truly say it, not wishful hoping, but from a place of genuine commitment, they are not simply making a statement about the future. They are giving an instruction to the most powerful filtration system that exists. And the brain immediately gets to work, not after you have proven yourself worthy, not when the conditions are right. Now, in this moment, it begins to rebuild your attention around what you have committed to. Most people never experience this, because most people never truly commit. They simply say what they want, think about it, but make temporary decisions from which they can retreat the moment difficulty appears. Temporary decisions produce temporary results, almost nothing, because the strength of the decision determines the strength of the instruction you give your brain. A vague, hesitant, one-foot-out-the-door decision produces the same kind of response. The brain does not know what it should be looking for, and so it looks for everything, and as a result finds nothing in particular. A clear, steady decision with no backdoor is an entirely different thing. It gives the brain a concrete target, and a brain with a concrete target is genuinely extraordinary at finding what it can find. This is why two people can sit in the same room, hear the same conversation, walk down the same street, and part ways with completely different experiences. They are running different filters. They have given different instructions. You are programming your brain constantly regardless. The only question is, are you doing it intentionally or automatically? Most people do it automatically, with old instructions created by past experiences, failures, and attempts that once did not work. The brain continues operating with that old information, but these instructions are not neutral. They shape what you see, what you attempt, what you believe is possible, and they continue working in the same way until something happens to stop them. One of the things that can change this is a genuine decision, not a wish, not an intention, not an enthusiasm given in the morning and gone by evening. A clear, concrete, and accountable decision you make for yourself. The decision that determines where you are going. Then the real work begins. Because the new instruction must compete with all the old ones. The moment you make a decision, the old filters do not disappear. They push back. They have evidence. They have years of experience supporting their own version of what is possible. This is why people appear to make decisions and then forget them. It is not weakness. It is the natural resistance created by an old system encountering a new instruction. It is the old program defending its territory. Breaking through the resistance is not a matter of force. It is a matter of repetition. A new instruction does not work by being said once. It must be returned to, said again, many times, until it becomes more familiar to the brain than the old story. After a certain point, the brain no longer sees it as a new and uncertain possibility. It begins to accept it as an already established reality. This change does not happen overnight, but it does happen if you keep returning. What people do when they visualize every day is precisely this. Not imagining the future, simply performing the technical maintenance of the instruction given to the brain. They ensure that the new program remains active against all the background noise pulling toward the old one. It is quiet work, unremarkable work, but it is the work that genuinely changes the filter. And the brain responds. Not magically, not instantly, but consistently and cumulatively. The filter gradually recalibrates. What was invisible begins to become visible. What felt impossible begins to turn into a question of how, not why not. This shift, the transition from why is it not possible to how is it possible, is one of the greatest transformations that can happen within a person. It does not arrive with noise. One day, you simply catch yourself and see that you are thinking about the same thing differently. You now stand in front of a door that once seemed closed and find yourself looking for the handle. The door was always there. So was the handle. Your brain simply was not looking for it. There is an important detail here. This process does not only change what you see, it also changes how you act. The moment you genuinely believe something will happen, you begin to approach everything related to it differently. The same task, but different energy, a different approach. You bring a different quality of attention. You stay longer when things get hard. You recover more quickly when something does not work. None of those differences are dramatic on their own, but they compound. Over weeks and months, the accumulated effect of approaching your life from a place of steady commitment rather than hopeful uncertainty produces results that, seen from the outside, look like extraordinary ability or exceptional luck. This is nothing mystical. It is simply the result of a brain that has been given a clear instruction and has been allowed to work. Many people understand this for a moment, but then return to their old habits, not because they do not believe it, simply because changing the instruction is more uncomfortable than they thought, because it requires sitting with a decision before there is any proof. It requires telling yourself, this will happen, even when everything around you is still neutral, sometimes even doubtful. And it requires repeating a new program over and over in the face of old thoughts accumulated over years. That discomfort is real. It is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something is changing, which is precisely what you are looking for. The people who pass through that discomfort, who keep bringing the instruction, who keep reinforcing the new program, even when the old one is louder, are the people whose brains ultimately rebuild themselves around what they have committed to. When that rebuilding happens, when the filter is fully updated, the world begins to look different. Not because it changed, because you changed. Opportunities you once could not see suddenly begin to appear. Connections form, ones that previously seemed impossible. Paths open up, not because someone cleared the way, simply because you finally have the filter that can see them. This is what happens when you say, this will happen, and truly mean it. No mystical event takes place here. Something more interesting takes place. The most complex information system we know of in the universe, your brain, begins to work on your behalf. It filters reality through the lens of the commitment you have made. And whatever you have told it to look for, it goes and finds it. The only question is, what will you tell your brain to look for? Because the only thing that changes is the quality of the instruction you give. And between the instruction and the result stands only one thing, repeating it enough, until the brain accepts it not as a new possibility, but as the reality it was built around. Quietly, consistently, without any spectacle. This, in truth, is the entire mechanism. The principle is simple. In practice, it requires discipline, but it is open to anyone who is truly ready to use it.